moment. It relates to logging at the Alberton West State Forest in Gippsland. The government and the community have actually spent years and millions of taxpayer dollars revegetating and restoring this forest, only to see it now being logged. Scientists have also recently said this logging is likely illegal because Vic Forest failed to identify and protect threatened species in the area, including the powerful owl and greater glider. Given all of this, will the Minister call for an immediate halt to logging in this forest to enable comprehensive threatened species surveying to happen?
Call the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Speaker. And I thank the member for Melbourne for the question. And Speaker, there are a number of matters that have been raised by the member which I have to disagree with because they're not based on facts. And I think it's really important for us to... I think it's important for us to do that. We take absolutely very seriously the protection of all of the very important values in our environment, and this is a case that is no less so. In terms of the Alberton coup that the member refers to, I can be really clear that the Conservation Regulator did undertake pre-harvest surveys, and they did find a number of species that needed protection. And so what they have done is made it clear that a number of measures needed to be put in place to protect not just animal species, vulnerable, threatened, but also vegetation classes. And those protections are in place now, which means that in some of the measures that have been put in place, there are protections for harvesting not to be able to occur within some of those areas. I can assure the member too that any complaints or any alleged breaches that community members may find or anybody might find, or indeed Vic Forest, if they want to present those to the Conservation Regulator, and a number of them have come forward, the Office of the Conservation Regulator, indeed established by this government, will apply all due diligence in the thorough investigation of all of those matters, because we take very seriously the biodiversity values within our communities, and we will continue to do so.
Member for Melbourne on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, logging in several areas across the state has been found to be illegal through challenges in the courts. But instead of stopping logging and protecting the forests in response, the Labor government's response was to weaken the environment laws and rush through changes to make logging the forests easier. With very little time, for the environment and community groups.
I just ask the member for Melbourne when we have silence. No, the member... Without the assistance of the member for Narracam, the member for Melbourne, can you repeat the question so I can hear the question?
Logging in several areas across the state has been found to be illegal through challenges in the courts, but instead of protecting the forest, the government's response has been to weaken environment laws and rush through changes that makes logging the forests easier. And environment community groups have been given very, very little time to look at these changes. Why has the Labor government decided to change the rules to make it easier for logging to happen, particularly when we know how much it affects our threatened species?
The Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, and again to the member for the supplementary question. And I will have to differ again with the member on a number of points, Speaker. And in particular, I think it's really critical for people to understand that under a previous government, not this government, but certainly by those opposite, they made a mess of the code, which meant that there was a lot of discrepancies and lack of clarity within the code, which was a hindrance not just to harvesting practices, but also conservation practices. We need to make sure that we're clear about this. Our government is not about weakening protection, Speaker. We have very strong legislation in place. In fact, we undertook some significant reviews and changed legislation to actually protect our biodiversity. Absolutely. What is the one major flaw for any potential court challenges is a lack of clarity in codes and legislation and regulations, and that is what we're cleaning up. Many of those have already been out for consultation in the last 3 years, and we will continue to deliver on this.